Welcome everybody. Welcome to today's lunch break with your comadres. Yesterday, the technology was not cooperating, but today we have all the brujas and everything is aligning. And so this is a series. If you are just watching this for the first time, we are doing these conversations. We're hosting these conversations every single weekday at noon, as I have been saying, for the foreseeable future, for as long as this moment lasts. And hopefully this becomes a regular occurrence going forward as well. But really what this is about, and the reason that we created it, is we knew that there's so much wisdom, and there's so much expertise, and there's so much that as a community we have to share, that we thought that the best way that we could contribute and give back in this moment is through those words, through holding space, through having these kinds of experiences and hosting these kinds of conversations, and also bringing visibility to these incredibly powerful, amazing women that are in our community. And so today, our topic is literally WTF. What is happening astrologically right now? What are the lessons? How do we wrap our heads and our hearts and our energy around this moment? And so I want to introduce the fabulous women that are joining us today. We have Daniela Veras, also known as That Bitch. We asked everybody what titles they wanted, and this is Daniela, and it is 100% accurate. We have the amazing Jasmine Kenna, known as the Oracle, and she has been my Oracle many times, so I can attest to that. Jessica Freitas, the Cosmic Conduit.
Love that.
And our own resident moon goddess, Marlene Menendez, Modern Mystic. And so here we are, ladies, and welcome to everybody who is watching. If you are watching and you feel compelled to start a watch party of all of this fabulousness, please do. We want you involved. So as you're watching, please share your questions, share what's coming up for you, share your comments. We will engage with you as part of this conversation as well. And every single one of these conversations, we are starting in a very comadre way with a very simple question that we all get to go around and answer briefly. So the question is, what are you grateful for today? And feel free to jump in.
Today, I'm grateful for y'all, for the space, for another day to share, to be in this moment yeah, sun is shining and it just feels great. I'm just grateful for this moment.
Yay.
Well, go ahead, Jessica. I'm grateful for my health. I have this little nose tickle, and I'm like, oh, well, that's actually, like, I don't need to dramatize that. I can get through this. I'm feeling like 80%, so I'm very grateful for that.
I'm grateful for clarity. I've been doing a shit ton of grounding work in this process. I mean, in general, I do a lot of grounding work. And some days, you're more in alignment with yourself, and some days you feel a little off, but had a few major releases over the last couple of weeks and just feeling very clear mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And spiritually. Today, so.
And I'm grateful for time and space to really be in it and do whatever I want with it, It's very rare that we get this time and space to expand and be creative in our own ways, or contract and be silent, whatever it is you want to do. So I think I'm mostly grateful for that freedom within this time.
Yeah, wonderful.
Feels good.
I'm grateful that this morning I made the time to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes, and it's just, it's been shorter and it hasn't always been consistent as I figure out a new life rituals and routines. And it's just amazing how much more in flow I feel, even with a full plate and lots going on. I'm just kind of flowing through it, and happy to be flowing through it with you, ladies. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And so I'm going to kick it off with a question that a lot of us had when all of this started going down and we started to realize the magnitude of what was happening. And the question is WTF? Like, right? I really thought when I realized the magnitude truly of what was happening, and that it was happening to the entire planet, and that it would go on for a while, one of my first thoughts was, there must have been some kind of astrological prediction about this. So I'm gonna like cede the floor to whoever wants to jump on that one first.
I'll share if that's okay.
Okay.
Because it's funny because January 11th, and some of you came to my event. Well, no, Gabby did. Marlene, you were gonna come, but life happened. January 11th and 12th. January 11th, I did a talk on the year ahead astrologically. So all the major transits of 2020. And I just want to share the words that I said in the beginning that were going to be the themes of the year. And it was maturity, mass crisis, collective karma, pressure, responsibility, security, both emotional and financial, and metamorphosis. So not to get too much into all the jargon, that's what's going on this whole year.
And it's fascinating because I think so many of us every time I hear those messages, I mostly interpret them maybe for like a community or for myself, never understanding that it would be like, oh, the entire planet. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I knew what it was going to be exactly by any means it was going to manifest, but I almost felt bad doing that report because the whole time I was like, it's going to be really intense, guys, you know, and I sounded like almost like the announcer of The Omen.
Yeah. And how could you possibly wrap your head around this before experiencing it, right? Like anybody.
But it's good. It's good. It's for mass transformation, but you know.
Yeah.
And what I love about astrology is like, man, it never fails. You know, you go in there, you look at it, and it's just right there. It's like on a personal level and on a collective level. It helps us understand so much. And for me personally, it relieves a little bit of the pressure because I'm like, oh, it's written in the fate train, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The way we create it from here on out and the space that we come from is up to us. But the map is there, the warnings, the signs, the opportunities, they're all there. And once you start studying it, you're like, and it sort of like liberates you a little bit, even though of course we're going through this collective and we have worries, we're human. On a human level, this is affecting all of us in such a different way. But on an astrological level, it's like, okay, if you start studying how the planets talk to each other and the houses talk to each other and the way things move, you're like, I see the expansions or I see the contractions, right?
Yeah.
And we're in a major contraction.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point, and I'd actually like to take, like, we're just a couple minutes in, but take like a few steps back, because there may be some people watching this right now that have never paid attention to astrology or aren't really sure what it is or how it works or why it's important. So if anybody would like to kind of jump in here and give us kind of like a primer, like 101, what is astrology and why does it matter? I feel like everybody can do like a 301.
Oh, you guys need basics.
Yeah.
I can't hear you guys.
Oh.
Oh.
Your sound. Can you, Jessica, are you still with us?
Something super weird today, just now.
Okay. We can hear you.
But
Okay,
you're
great.
frozen now. Yeah.
Sorry.
But we can hear you.
And I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yes, just a couple sentence, like, here's what astrology is, here's why it's important. Just to kind of get us all on like the same initial page. What would you say?
I would say that astrology is a study of cycles for me. It's we talk about as above, so below, as within, so without. It really is a study of cycles. And I feel like I've been saying this lately, that a lot of astrologers, we're like closet historians, you know, like we look at patterns, we look at the way, like Marlene was talking about how the planets tend to interplay and interact with each other. But we can see major themes going on when certain things, when Saturn is conjunct Pluto, what was happening, a few years ago, and glean some information from that. And even if we look at it on a human level, we have our own life cycles. Like one of my favorite ones to talk about is Saturn. Saturn is one of those, which is a big theme for us with Cancer Capricorn nodal axis, is that we are maturing as a collective. We are being called to grow up. So Saturn is like the daddy energy. Saturn is a maturing planet, right? It's like, I call Saturn daddy. And like, for instance, Saturn cycles are about 28, 29 years. So when you see certain pivotal points in your life, they're usually about every 7 years. Like, I believe it's in Judaism where they have, at 7 years, a child now becomes responsible for its decisions. At 14, 13, 14, that's usually like their bat mitzvah, right? 21 is the next one, another big pivotal coming of age period. And all of you remember your Saturn return, I can imagine, right before you turned 30, when your life kind of like was a little bit of a shit show. A lot of people were like, wait, I remember that. Oh my gosh. Or when
I learned about Saturn return after I experienced it. And I have since told every 27-year-old, get ready.
Buckle up. Yeah.
Yes. There's like, and each planet has its own particular cycle. Like, here's another one of my favorites I like to point to is like Uranus has a, people I say Uranus if they're trying to be like, but it has a cycle of, I want to say 82 years or so.
Yeah, 83,
right?
84.
82, 84 years. And so, right, that Uranus opposition usually coincides with that midlife crisis, when they quit their job, buy the Ferrari, date the yoga instructor. You know what I mean? It's like Uranus is the great liberator. It wants to get free. It wants to break free from things. It reminds me of the Tower card in tarot. It's like, it's just, it just fucks things up, and it just really, and it's not in a bad way. Usually it breaks you free from things that are constraining you from being in your fullest and highest expression. And so when I talk about astrology, what is it? It's not astronomy, which people sometimes confuse it, or astrophysics. It's a study of cycles. It's a study of archetypes and how they present in the human condition.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
That makes sense?
Add something to that as well.
And so explain to us, how does the study of astrology somehow give us a window into what we are experiencing in our lives? Like, how does that work?
I want to circle back to Jessica really quick. She had something to add, yeah?
Yeah, well, it goes on to what Gabby just said. So if you think about it, we all have these electromagnetic fields, right? That's why EKGs work and all these, these different monitoring systems work. Or an aura, as, people say, but it's an electromagnetic field. Anything has an electromagnetic field, except especially things that are alive. Planets have massive electromagnetic fields. That's why they can pull moons to stay within their orbit. So you have these bodies that have these fields, right? Our moon is so strong that it pulls the tides. And so the conversation between the planets in terms of their placement at certain angles, just like when somebody's making a circuit, certain placements in a circuit conduct electricity more favorably or more intensely, or sometimes the wattage is lowered, right? So that's basically what's happening in terms of what's called the transits. So the transits are where the planets are in real time. So if I say, what's going to be transiting April 1st? I look at April 1st and I see the positions of the planets. And as an astrologer, I know, okay, when they're in a mathematical degree of this, that's more tension, or that's easier flow, whatever. Your natal chart is where the planets were at the exact time that you were born. So that's going to affect your electromagnetic field, your personal resonance that you carry with you. So that conversation, that I guess in a way, almost symphony of electromagnetism happening at present in combination with your own electromagnetic field is essentially how we feel, how we work with, how we process the energies of the planets in real time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Beautifully. Yeah, beautifully explained. Thank you. I think that makes, I love the symphony of it.
Yes.
It is. It's so harmonic, and so, I'm also a sound person, so it's like
Yes.
Yeah.
think
Yes.
of the planets in terms of music.
Yes.
It is.
Jessica is a sound person, and a lot of really magical and magically weird sounds come out of Jessica, and it's awesome. They are healing and they are amazing. And so can astrology help us understand what is happening and why it is happening right now, specific to this moment? And what can we learn from astrology in terms of what's happening?
For example, like the symphony that Jessica was talking about, one specific symphony that's going right now, or it's going to happen exact on Saturday, if I'm correct, is the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction.
That happened yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday, right? Or was it going to be, I thought it was going to be Saturday.
It happened yesterday, and it's going to happen, but it's still within.
Right. So then yesterday we had that conjunction, and we had it in Capricorn. So what does that mean, right? What does all that conversation mean? And it's really up to each of our interpretation. But basically, you know, Capricorn is about our structures that we have in place, our government structures, our traditional structures, our things that we have looked at through time that have built and set this certain place of authority, right? As to the group of us, to the collective of us.
Yeah.
And in Capricorn, Jupiter and Pluto are going to come conjunct. So that means that they're going to come real close to each other. It's within maybe a few degrees. Okay. So basically, Jupiter expands. It is it's a benefic planet. It is the biggest planet, if I'm not mistaken. And it expands everything that it comes to contact with. And Pluto transforms. So we're talking about huge transformation in Capricorn, which is our structures in place. So this is challenging those structures. And if they're antiquated, outdated, or worn out, it will dissolve them. And that's not always pretty.
Yeah.
That could look like chaos.
Yes.
But haven't you ever had chaos in your life that you look back on and you said, man, that was the best thing that ever happened to us, or that was the best thing that ever happened to me? So within all of that transformation, and Pluto is like change or be changed, and he gives you an opportunity to change yourself. But if you don't listen to the whispers of transformation, let's say, then you will be changed. And here we're talking about in a collective, massive way. And that's that Jupiter is in Capricorn, and it's at its fall position, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that it loses its power. So it's not even expanding as much as it can.
Wow.
Okay. But it does give us one or two doors in front of us, because Jupiter creates opportunity for you. And if it's expanding in a big way, then it's opening all these pathways in front of you. But since it's in Capricorn, it's restricted. So that's why we feel that restriction right now. And we may only have one or two choices in front of us, or maybe we feel like we have none. But really, it's about bringing that in. And Pluto, let me just mention, is also about fear. It is the planet that rules fear. So if we're looking at a true pandemic right now, it is the pandemic of fear more than anything else.
Wow.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So look at those things that are in front of you, because the world will be changed from this moment on. And I don't say that to bring any kind of expanded fear, but it's almost like, look at the things that are truly in front of you that are calling to you, you know? And if you have limited choices, then move towards the choice that feels better, you know? And we're looking toward always, like, you guys have heard me, well, the Comadres have heard me talk about the nodes, you know? And the nodes, the south node is in Capricorn, where this Jupiter and Pluto conjunction is happening. And that's where we came from. And on the other side of Capricorn is Cancer, and that's where the north node is. And that's where we're going. So what feels right?
Yeah.
What is bringing emotional fulfillment? And then move into that direction of your limited choices is the best interpretation that I can come up with when these two planets come together.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think in the context of that, there's something that I'd love to hear from all of you from. And it's because all of these women are highly, highly intuitive. And whether they do it personally or professionally, they hold space for a lot of people. They are sought out for guidance, for support, for clarity. And I know, and one of the things that we do very purposely in Las Comadres is that words like intuition and feeling guided and rooted and grounded hold as much weight as when we talk about getting investors for your business or getting, your sales funnels together, because we understand and intentionally value in our community the power of the sacred feminine, and these women carry it in droves. And I'm really interested from each one of you, and really more just as a conversation, not as a definitive answer, but intuitively, what are you feeling are the lessons of this moment, even if it's just for today. If you're feeling them beyond today, please speak to that. But I'd love to hear from all of you. What are you feeling this moment is here to teach us?
Well, I had a really interesting, my dreams in the past week have been really vivid and intense. And I've been waking up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:45 in the morning. And this morning at, I think 4:50, I sat straight up in bed because I heard my doorbell ring, which, obviously it wasn't my real doorbell. It didn't, but it was, I think it was it felt to me like a spiritual doorbell. Like, it's time for me to wake up and to make decisions about what I want and where I'm going. And so I think that all of the hemming and hawing I've done in the last couple of cycles of my life, in the last couple of years, like, this is my culmination of, okay, this is the time for you to do whatever it is that you choose to do. And this is, I think for me, the biggest lesson is that none of this shit is guaranteed. Life is not a guarantee. So you need to make some choices to be living the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Show up.
I felt that in my core, man.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's no more room for putting things off that matter.
Yeah. It's time.
There's no more space, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A million trillion %.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jessica. What are you feeling?
It's funny because Marlene and I were talking about this the other day. And I don't want it to sound narcissistic, because I definitely have moments where I feel the weight of what collectively is going down. And I'm part of the collective. So there is no separating that, right? Which I think that's one of the lessons. It's like, I really am connected to everybody and every sentient being on this planet. I have cried for the animals, the ozone layer, the humans, the everybody in the last few days. But at the same time, maybe it sounds selfish or whatever, but it's like confirmation that I've been doing the right thing. Because before this, leading the path of a healer, I'm a healer, I'm an artist. I'm an artist, but I'm also extremely logical and rational, And for a long time, there was still that little sliver of doubt of like, am I making sense doing this? Because it's, at least for me, I do a lot of channeling work as well. And it's this constant going against the grain. And I know a lot of healers that struggle with that. Healers, mystics, witches, whatever you want to call us. Even when we're fully in our power and we feel super connected to divine and everything, there can be moments where it's like, damn, am I just like this is different. I'm weird. My own personal stories, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, this is actually lining up with like how my life has been the last like year and change, 2 years. Like my personal day-to-day life hasn't really changed much at all since this has happened. And I'm like, oh, I feel pretty aligned.
Yeah.
I feel actually very much like listening to my true north, even when it went against the grain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that's exactly what you have to keep doing all the time, even when it's super uncomfortable. Just keep doing that. Keep listening to your heart. Keep like being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I know people say that a lot, but it's like for me right now, it's like, oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. This is the thing I'm doing. All right. You know,
We all get to practice that one, whether we want to or not. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I want to piggyback
like do it on your own volition, so you don't have to be forced with your back against the wall and then do it.
Yes. Yes.
It's a lot easier when you take that
intentionally being the one to walk into the uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Yes.
do it.
Not
do
being
it.
pushed into it.
Yep.
It's so much
Because being
easier.
pushed is always 10 times harder.
But everybody
people
just
don't
got
get it.
pushed. Yeah,
When you
everybody's
walk
pushed.
in, the journey is a lot more gentle than
Yeah,
when
like
the universe
it's
is
still
like,
bumpy, but it's just not like, oh my God, I'm dying. You
Yeah,
know?
Right.
yes. Yes.
Like, okay.
Daniela, you wanted to jump in there?
I just resonated with a lot of what she was saying also. It's less about being in this doingness sometimes for me and more about allowing and being more receptive, not fighting against what my spirit already wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like sometimes when you hear this thing about this external thing, oh, you're going to either be forced or be pushed. And it's not, for me, it's never been like this external thing. It's internal call for me of like, that's not what you want to do, Danny. And we're going to keep course correcting you and aligning you until you stay within your true north.
Yes.
And to echo what Jessica was saying, a lot of times, and especially with people who are the mystics, the weirdos, the freaks, the witches, all of these people, we've always been a little bit different or a lot of bit different, you know? And so society, especially in previous times, taught us to seek validation outside of ourselves, to make sure that what's happening, people are okay with it, you know? And I feel like for me, in following this path and in doing things my own way, I had to let go of that need to find that validation outside of myself. I needed to trust my own vision, even if it like I couldn't find confirmation, because sometimes confirmation is a trap too. We're like, oh, I need confirmation. You need knowing, you know, you need to, for me, I'm speaking for myself, I need to be so clear and present with myself that I know, and I don't need to see the confirmation necessarily, you know, or wait for that after the fact. And much like Jessica, my life hasn't changed very much. In fact, it's gotten busier. People are like, oh, I'm so bored, I don't know what to do. And, you know, I have to sit with myself. I was like, welcome, we love it here. You know, it's like this is how I live, you know, and I've been through those phases. I've been de esa cabezadura, you know, stubborn ass that didn't go the way my spirit was going. And you knew, Gabby, you saw, like, I pretty much got like evicted from my life.
Yeah.
You know, until it was like, what's up? You gonna get with it or get lost? Like, what's up, Danny? You know what I mean? Yeah, my spirit guides are gangsters. So
They don't mess around.
nah, they're gangsters. Like they don't play with me, but I like it like that. You know what I mean? I like it when they give it to me direct and straight up and assertive and all that. So I really like that. But it's happening even more so now, where I'm seeing the collective, and I know it's not that, like, I'm again echoing the same sentiments. I fully recognize that I'm not separate from anybody, and that has been one of my guiding principles. But also my experience has been very different from a lot of people, and even different from some people that I've come to know as you know, spiritual and all of that. You know, it really is revealing who the fuck's been doing the work.
Yep.
Okay.
100%.
And I think
it's a great level up.
I think there's so many people though that I didn't know what the work was 5 years ago.
Right.
When I started, right? And so it is I think up to people like us to like hold the hands of the people that are like, what's up?
And that brings me to the next point of that.
And right?
Yeah, and that's what I see. And I think I get chills because I've been in this process for ages now. Like I've been doing this. Like my stay-at-home game is hella strong. Okay. You know, you already know. Jasmine knows my she's like, you know, hermit. Like,
I'm a hermit too.
Yeah.
Solitude is my friend.
I got called out of my cave.
Yo, I'm a fourth houser.
Yo, I get you. Fourth house sun Uranus, you know? But a Leo rising. Like, who does that? Like, who? Like, I was like, why did I pick this chart? Like, this is crazy. Right?
I get it. I got a Gemini rising and Gemini moon, but I'm a fourth houser, you know?
Girl, yes. So it's like, I feel like for especially anybody who's listening out there who feels this way, who's like, you know, I'm not feeling this. It's because, like, at least for me, this has put me in a prime position to serve. In fact, when all of this shit popped off, you know what happened? Like, all of a sudden, all these other things, and it was like, boom. I'm like, okay, Danny, it's showtime. I'm like, fuck, it's showtime. Let's go, you know? And it's like, it seems really weird and counterintuitive, but I started doing these virtual happy hours twice a day, Monday through Saturday. And I started to provide, along with my partner, Jackie, we've provided the space for people who are out of work bartenders to do cocktails for us online. And they come from all over the world and all over the country, and we tip them virtually through Venmo. So you know what I mean? So yeah, it's awesome. Super cool. And then we have a lifestyle guest, so we're providing value and information, and we're, you know, supporting each other and providing a space for people to be social. You know what I mean? And like, we have the recorded portion, then we turn it off, and then we just like, yo, how the fuck y'all doing? You know, it becomes like, we have the 6 o'clock, which is a little more, you know, and then we've got the 11 o'clock nightcap, and then it gets lit in the after dark. You know what I'm saying? So
we will share the links to all of these things in the comments.
But it's interesting because I went from hiding to now having to be on for 2-3 hours a day, supporting people that I don't even know who, like, I've never met like 99% of these people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it shows us, I mean, like, we talk about Saturn, you know, yes, Jupiter is Jupiter and Capricorn is in, it's like, it's not comfortable there because there is some restriction. But look at like Saturn and Aquarius that we have now. You know, Aquarius community, Saturn constriction. Again, what are we doing? Social distancing is like the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly, it's like, I get chills thinking about it, just how literal astrology is. Aquarius is very much about the sign of togetherness and community and isolation. Because Aquarius, it's such an interesting dynamic. Aquarius, while it's also all about community and belongingness, it often doesn't feel like it belongs, right? So when we're looking at all these ways that we're like even now, the way that we're connecting with each other, and the way that the internet has experienced another boom. The last time that Saturn was in Aquarius, the internet experienced another boom, BT dubs. But now everyone is flocking to Zoom. Zoom shut down for like 2 days, like where it wasn't doing recordings. People are flocking to things like House Party. The lives were getting lit. People are, you know, looking for different ways to connect with each other and realizing in some ways that it's not just about the flesh that's connecting. It is about energies. It is about hearts. It is about coherence, you know? And I've had relationships, I mean, with people, like even the guy that I started the happy hours with, I've seen him like 3 times my whole life. And he's one of my closest friends.
And so I've heard it's time to do what you're feeling called to. I'm hearing interconnectedness. I'm hearing allowing yourself to feel the personal call for what you want to birth at this moment, and allowing in your full weirdness and your full kind of all of who you are. Marlene, do you want to add anything to this conversation from the perspective of the lessons of this moment, collectively and also personally?
Well, I think one thing that has been really apparent is that we've all been forced to be present It's like we're all getting to know what being present really is. The future is still being created. We can't even see what that's going to look like. The past really doesn't matter at this point because, like you said, we're really focused on what really matters.
Yeah.
So everyone is kind of pushed into this present moment. And like my girls here, we've all been preparing for this moment. We've all been practicing that practice of being present and observing and being in our witness. But now everybody else is having to do it too.
Yeah.
And I find that to be really interesting. And that's why probably most of us are so busy, because people are reaching out like, yo, I don't know how to be in this space. And I remember, when I first woke up like 10 years ago, and it was right before 2012. And when that galactic center point where in 2012, December 21st, 2012, when all the planets aligned to the sun, that was a major pivotal start to everything that's happening right now. And we were told that in 2020, us light workers kept hearing from our teachers, in 2020, we're going to start seeing the physical manifestations of what this means. And now here we are. And we're having to learn all these personal lessons in the present moment, in our house, with our families, everything's coming up.
Yeah.
So I would say lessons here, reach into your tools. Like if you do yoga as many times as you need to do yoga a day. If you breathe heavily. If you need to reach out to your support system, do that. If you need to reach out to a healer, do that. All of us that are kind of in this wave, we are ready to serve. I know each and every woman on this call is ready to serve.
Yeah.
And it not only ready, it fills us.
Yes.
It's what we came here to do.
And I want to just add a little context for the people that are watching and are still kind of confused about the work. I mean, truly, it's as Marlene was saying, it's just the answers are within. The answers are within us, and we are socialized as a society to value ourselves based on our productivity, on our busyness, on our doingness. And we claim that we don't have time to meditate, to sit still. And many of us are actually terrified of it. We're actually terrified of what might come up. I will share, even personally, I've always been attracted to this world. I'm 39 now, but when I was 24, I remember being curious about meditation and starting to meditate and immediately feeling a heavy, heavy knot in my throat every time I sat still. And I avoided doing it for years. And that knot in my throat is exactly where I needed to breathe into, is exactly what I needed to sit with. And that knot in my throat was a symbol of all that I got to work through. What's the shame that you're carrying? What's the trauma that you're carrying? What are you healing in your life? And so what we're talking about today is that there have been some of us that have been committed to doing this work for ourselves and helping other people through that for years, which is why a lot of us are feeling very called to be like, oh, I got you. Now that all of us are stuck indoors and you get to be present, I got you. We can help you through this. And so in the context of that, I'd love to hear from each of you. What are people coming to you for? Or what are you seeing is coming up for the people that you are around, whether it's anxiety, whether it's fear? What are people coming to you for? And for those watching that are going to relate to what you're going to say, what would you advise them? What are some maybe a first step that they can take to start to explore what's coming up for them in the context of what's happening? Because I feel like this week in particular is I think it feels not only as a strong week of acceptance of what we're going through, but also people are feeling the daunting reality that this is going to go on for a while. and a while, but nobody knows the timeline yet. And so there's a lot that's coming up for people. So how can people move through that? Like, so it's a two-parter, like what's coming up for them? And maybe we can start with you, Jasmine. And second, what would you advise to them as they start to move through and experience it?
Well, I think people have been coming to me just to really hold space. You know, I haven't been in an advice kind of space really, you know, and offer, because I don't know anything, you know, I know just as little as everybody else. So I think that the people that have come to me need a soft place to land and need someone to just be there for them in these anxious moments. And I think the other thing is just to kind of keep it light. I have given myself a very small window every day to just really dig into what's happening in terms of like reading and the news and stuff. Yeah. And then I'm done. Yes. So I have I've been a pretty clear vessel around like, okay, we can still like live our lives. We can still have some fun. There's still some like levity, like things, you know, I'm home with 3 kids all day and a dog. So funny shit's happening to me all day. You know, like we're doing homeschool things have to stay light and things have to stay airy and fun, or I'm going to be in a weird place. So I think that's mostly the things that people have been coming to me for. But I think to get started on doing your work, the way that I always like people to start is to get curious, you know, just to get curious, like, oh, why am I feeling the need to yell at the dog? Or why am I feeling the need to drink 7 beers? You know, like like, why am I what am I numbing? What am I trying to push away? And like, maybe if I just dug in a little bit, I would see like, oh, well, this is triggering me in this way. Or maybe it's just, I have a little bit of fear around being abandoned or being stuck here, or like whatever it is. And you don't have to make it this huge mountain, because I mean, you guys know our work never ends. We're going to be doing work till we leave here, and then the next round too. So you can just do a little bit. You can just start with a little something easy. Don't beat yourself up around it, and just try to love yourself. You know, have a little bit of self-compassion.
Can I add to that also? Sure. I mean, I have 2 things. One, yes, Jasmine, absolutely. I feel like holding space is like number 1. And I feel like we could all benefit from learning how to do that properly. You know what I mean? And how to just, like you said, be like that clear vessel for people, a soft place to land without projecting our own things onto their experience. It's a really tough line to balance. And the other thing is like, I feel as we're talking, we're still super high level because we've been doing the work for so long that we're still kind of like, it still seems a little mystical, a little bit like, well, I don't know what to do. What do you mean the work? I'm trying. Like, do I lift something? Like I think it sounds really weird. And I feel like for people, if anyone's listening who's unfamiliar with how to do the work, I would definitely recommend getting a partner, someone who has done it, to model it with you, a therapist to help you model the questions and the behavior and the way to get curious. Because then sometimes you're getting curious and I'm like, well, what do I do with that information? Right. You know, and if it's something like, okay, I'm hurting around this, I don't understand why I'm hurting, you know, have someone talk it out with you. Someone that has done the work before, someone that can, and I'm grateful that I've had a lot of people. I'm like, hey, I'm looking to unpack something. Can you sit with me with this? You know, and having that feedback so that someone can model the way to do the work. Because it's hard to do the work on your own, to be honest. If you've never done it before, you know, how do you even know if you're doing it right? You know, and it's not necessarily a wrong way to do it, but it's like, there are ways to use to one, ask good questions that help you uncover things that are productive in some ways that give you information that you can use, you know? And I feel like the work and the work and what people are really asking me for right now and what's been coming up and what it's like, they're just so ready to stop hiding from themselves. You know, like I had someone ask me, he's like, can you teach me how to meditate? You know, simple things like that. Like, I want to try meditation. I want to try, can you tell me how to eat better? Tell me about intermittent fasting. Or I want to learn more about myself. Astrology is an amazing tool for doing the work in professional development and self-awareness and all of that. An amazing tool for that. you know, and so I find people are coming to me more for that type of stuff. And even just, I feel like, you know, just random things that I never thought, I thought I was too weird, you know, and I was really into weird shit. And now people are interested in my weird shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's more what's been coming up for me, is more people asking about just basic, simple stuff. It's like, how do I sit with myself? What does that mean? How do I, like the same thing, how do I do the work? Just even how do I meditate? That's enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Daniela, I've been getting like similar questions, and really what I thought of when you were talking, it's like people are coming to me, and it seems like to you too, Daniela, to be brave, to finally be brave in their life, and to finally do those things that they've been thinking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've also been getting this unique thread of people coming to me feeling an activation. Like all of a sudden they've been doing a little bit of work, and all of a sudden this situation has accelerated that in some way. And what's happening here is at a cellular level, people. This is a transformation down to our cells. And this is an activation of the way we connect with each other that we've spoken about, the way we treat ourselves, the way we love ourselves. We're coming into realization about all these really, really important things. And for people that maybe had just stepped in and started to meditate, or started to see somebody, like Daniela said, a mentor that's been helping them, and all of a sudden they've had this acceleration where they're having very vivid dreams. I think you said that before, someone said that here, or they're feeling tingles in their body at night, and they're kind of asking questions about that, or things have come up like major like activations where they're just feeling kind of weird, and they're thinking they're being overly emotional or overthinking things. So I've also seen a unique amount of women come to me like, hey, something's up, and I need you to kind of explain to me or see what you feel, or what does your intuition tell me, you know? So people are being brave out there and stepping into their power, which is kind of cool.
I love it. Jessica, what's your experience been?
A lot of it has been people who kind of were on the fence, or kind of knew they needed to do the work, and were like in and out, and now they're like, okay. What's interesting is it actually started picking up right before all this shit hit the fan, like a few weeks before. Also, what came, which I thought was really interesting, so I linked up with one of my healing mentors probably around 8 months ago. And when I say the work, obviously we mean spiritual work, that can mean a lot of things. What has been because the activation work kind of was more in my early journey. Lately, it's been a lot more for me facilitating for others, and even for myself, shadow work and grounding work. What I mean by those two is shadow work is going into your deep psyche and pulling all that shit out, and actually seeing yourself, your wounds, your pain, ultimately with the, I don't want to say goal, but with the idea of integrating that and loving every single part of yourself, and seeing when those subconscious urges are what's guiding you as opposed to your highest self, right? So that has been a big part of it. And I work a lot. I work with the spirit. I do consulting, speaking, but a lot of my stuff is very physical, right? I'm a channel, and when I channel, it's very much sound and energy. And so I work on the body. And I may not even touch somebody. They start crying, they start fucking whatever, and stuff moves around. My healing mentor, when I connected back with him, it was interesting because he was like, you're ready, but we got to do work. So, okay. And he works specifically with cancer patients. And there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I'm not like, that's a lot, you know, that's a big responsibility. And like serious cancer patients. And right before all this shit hit the fan, I started having people with cancer reach out to me, one person in particular that I've been working with every single day. And so for me, a lot of it's like, okay, now it's really time for you to level up with your faith in divine and your ability to hold space in ways that you didn't think you were able to do before.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So that's a huge part of it. And yeah, holding space, teaching people what grounding means. I feel personally grounding is like the most important thing to do in your life in general and right now.
Yes.
With this much energy, this much technology, right? The frequencies are like crazy right now. The collective mind is super revved up. It's so important to ground.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I've been doing, I was asked, but also kind of felt in my spirit to do, was I've been doing these weekly meditations just to ground, open to the public. Because some people are like, how do I get into meditation? Or like, I have trouble doing it, you know, for myself. So just, again, holding that space, doing a guided meditation, little by little, right?
Yeah.
Just like, hey, there's a lot of collective energies doing this right now. And the more collective energy kind of like harnessing that light, the better.
Yes.
So that's been a big part of it. Yeah.
And so as we come down to our final minutes here, we have a question from Karina. And essentially her question is that, you know, she's committed to meditation and she's been sharing about that on Instagram, but she has friends that she has a particular friend who is Catholic who has been telling her there's something wrong with yoga and meditation. And she's asking how can she convince them? Oh, you've been doing the 21 days of Deepak. So I think just to kick it off, I'm sure these ladies will have a lot more to share, but just to kick it off, Karina, it is not your job to convince anybody of anything. So let go of that right now. Shake it off. Get up from your chair and move it out.
Want to be healed.
You do not need to convince anybody of anything.
It's also not spiritual. You can also frame it that it's not spiritual or religious. Make it science. Yep. I love science. I'm like, you're literally just balancing out your electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
Keep it.
And understand that you being in your light and you sharing what brings you joy and peace, anybody who's triggered by your joy and your peace, that has nothing to do with you, my friend. That has 0% to do with you. And unless somebody is ready for an open, respectful conversation where you're both learning, I don't think that there's much point in engaging with that. Right?
I'll tell you one thing from my experience. I'm vegan, vegetarian, because I'm not militant about it, so I say vegetarian. But I've had, how do I say? People try to talk to me about it, or they'll talk to me about being carnivorous and all that. Tell me how many people have actually convinced to be vegan by talking to them. Big goose egg, nobody. But I've had more success just sitting here and embodying what a vegan looks like, what I feel like, how my energy is like, the fact that I look good as shit for my age. And they're just like, what are you doing? I'm just like, I'm eating vegetables, B. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And it's
also,
like,
I think you wrote recently, like doing the work and drinking lots of water.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Right. They're like, how's your skin? And I was like, yeah, lots of therapy. And I cry a lot. I cry so much, y'all. And look, glowing.
My skin is glowing.
You know, but it's like literally, and even with working out, because you know I trained combat sports, and people are like, oh my gosh, what do you do? Telling people what to do or convincing anybody never worked for me. But when I was an example, when I showed them the proof of what I was doing, they came to me and asked.
Exactly.
And that is better.
And that's something that is available to all of us. Embodying your truth and your joy and your peace will attract people to you for the right reasons, and you can let go of any pressure otherwise.
Yeah, you just be. Yeah. You be a beacon. You be the beacon for them, and the ships will find you. 100%. You just gotta stand there and shine, baby. That's it.
So in our last few minutes, I would love to go around and just get some final thoughts from you ladies on kind of what's some little nugget of wisdom that you would like to share with everyone. And Jasmine, I'd love to have you share with us a little bit more about, because I feel like your vein is astrology related, but like explain to people a little bit about human design and how it works. Okay. And then go ahead and share your little nugget of wisdom as we close out for today.
Yeah, I mean, so I think as my friend AC Brown, she's a human design specialist as well, says, if astrology is New York City, human design is the subway system, like underneath all of it. So it's kind of the mechanics, the nuts and bolts of how we work energetically in a personal way and how we all interact with one another. So it incorporates a lot of astrology and a lot of transits and things like that. And there are definitely like a ton of cycles in human design that kind of line up, but not necessarily are exactly the same as everything astrological. But I don't know. I mean, I think human design is, for me, the best way I found for myself to know how I work alone and then within groups specifically. So, yeah.
Yes.
I think, and I think that my nugget of wisdom, do you want to know what it is from this panel that I've taken away? Or
just in general that you want to leave people with today?
I think just, I don't know, man, just be kind to yourself during this time. Times are tough for everyone. I mean, people, there's struggles, you know, people are, like we were talking about, are having to face themselves, which they haven't been doing maybe, and many of us haven't been doing. And I think that don't be hard on yourself. Yeah. Love yourself up and give yourself like compassion and say, hey, we can get through this. Just if you can't do a day at a time, you just do an hour at a time. Yes. You know, take a nap if you need it.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Who's next?
For me, I just want to say that really faith is a really powerful, powerful thing. And humanity is a powerful, powerful thing. And really just keep the faith and keep it practical. You know, if you're interested in doing your spiritual work or facing your shit, take it day by day, take it nugget by nugget, ask for help, you know, and maintain your faith that whatever's happening is, it's happening. Yeah. And accept it, just be in it and take yourself from there. Accept the way that things are and accept the way you're feeling and be authentic with that. And then take it from there. You know, I spoke that everything feels restricted, but I promise that there's doors that are open in front of you. It just takes a little bit of faith and a little bit of willingness to see, but I promise that they're there.
Beautiful. Danny, you want to jump in next?
Sure. I have to share that meme with you, Marlene, about there's a cat staring at the door trying to get out, but the walls are all empty, but he was so busy focused on the problem, he couldn't see the solutions all around him.
Yeah.
You see? So that's like, that reminded me of what you were saying. For me, my foundation is evolutionary astrology, which is, you know, kind of like astrology with depth psychology, Jungian psychology combined. We focus a lot on the unconscious. So my nugget of wisdom is one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung, which is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
Yes. I hope.
I'm also an evolutionary astrologer, so.
What's that?
I'm also an evolutionary astrologer, so.
Yay!
I mean, there's so many things. It's funny because at first I wanted to say the kindness thing, but to kind of jump on that or expand from that, healing is a hard process. Okay, I don't sugarcoat anything. It can be really painful and really uncomfortable, but it happens and it's hard until it's not. And the sooner you are willing to face yourself, love yourself, and discover yourself, the easier it gets. And the more amazing everything else, it just, the trajectory of life expands you to parts of yourself that you would never, ever, ever have thought were even on the horizon. And it's really fucking cool. And the pain is like this big in comparison to all the gnarly opportunities and magic and joy that end up coming through. So even on your hardest day, like even on my hardest day, I'm fine because I know I can get through it and I know I will get through it and I know it's not like my beginning end all. So it's not as hard as you think it is. Yeah. It's hard until it's not.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Clearly, we could talk for 5 hours. And we could come back. So I just want to thank you all so much for being so present and so open and so giving and generous in this conversation with our community. These women, to me personally, each mean so very much, and I'm just honored that we have shared this space and we've had this opportunity to share a little window into what our conversations are like normally with the rest of the world. And hopefully this has been of use to you. Hopefully it's brought you a little light in your day. Linda said something a little, she says, this lunch break just brought me life. Love you, girl.
Hey.
So yes, I feel like that is a shared sentiment. So I want to be so thankful to each and every one of you. I also want to remind everyone that in this post, we have a link. We are all entrepreneurs and small business owners who are feeling it right now. So if you have heard something today that has moved you and you are inspired to donate, please use that link. If you would like to donate to anyone in particular, please add their names to the notes. So that we can continue to do what we're doing. We will continue to show up. We are vowing to stay strong for all the reasons that we shared here with you today. We have been doing the work and we are here for you. And we will continue to be here for you as a community every single weekday at noon. Tomorrow, we're having a fantastic conversation on how to manage and ground and be present and not jump out a window with your children at home. During the time.
Very necessary.
Good one.
So
That is a good one.
a lot of people that are going to tune into that one, and we are very excited about it.
Service right there.
I will be there. I will be there.
That, let me tell you,
And
that is the work. That is the work right there.
Children are your teachers. That's for damn sure.
And yes, deeply honoring teachers. We actually are going to have Linda. Linda Garcia is going to be in on the session, and she.
Oh, lovely.
So that's going to be fantastic. So thanks again so much to everyone. We love you, and we will see you soon.